Time now for us to bring in Nicholas Moreano, who's been working hard behind the scenes on some of these OC candidates. You can follow him on Twitter at Nicholas Moreano. You can read him at ALLCITY.com, and he has a story up right now on Shane Waldron, the Seahawks OC. Looked at some plays that might be relevant to the Bears. Nick, what did you learn in your research on Shane Waldron?
Yeah, so first off, I think he's my favorite candidate as of right now for the 5 that the Bears have requested to interview, but obviously comes from that McVay coaching tree like you guys were just talking about. But the game that I went back and watched was their matchup with the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. It was a 41-35 loss from this last season. But in that game, I just really liked how Shane Waldron utilized all of the playmakers available. Obviously, they have DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett. And throughout the entirety of that game, all those guys were at one point the first read on a specific play. And you saw Geno Smith just distributing the football to any one of those guys at any given moment. So I think when you're looking at what Shane Waldron could bring if he was the Bears OC, you're going to get a guy that's not really synced into only using one guy in his offense. He can use multiple guys if he has them, uses motion to set guys up, just giving advantages to his offensive players. And I think if Luke Getsy did more of that more consistently, he'd still be here, but he clearly didn't. So that's what I really liked about Shane Waldron. But like you just said, Adam, you can go read more about that at allchgo.com. But he definitely is a guy that if you give him weapons, he's going to find the best way to maximize the talent that he has around him.
Nick, what was your reasoning in picking the Cowboys game?
It was just their best offensive performance against a really good defense. So just kind of looking back at all of the games that the Seahawks have played under Geno Smith, they just put up they put up 35 points and were in a shootout consistently against a good defense. And we also saw that type of offensive scheme plan, or that offensive scheme, obviously what Waldron comes from McVay. And you see what Matt LaFleur also comes from, and that type of offense, like it puts up points, and it did so against the Dallas Cowboys. So it's just a good indication of what it could look like when it's maximized to its full potential.
It's always interesting to see how some of these coaching things play out. So you're saying Shane Waldron outcoached Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn may end up being the head coach in Seattle while Shane Waldron's out. When Dan Quinn just got, how many did the Packers put up on his defense the other day?
4,000.
And Mike McCarthy, who was the head coach over Dan Quinn, might be out there while his DC gets hired somewhere else. It's wild. It's a wild world out there.
You got to have friends, baby. The network's going to spin. Where are you going to land?
Yeah. Jason Stevens, $5 super chat. Would it make sense for Poles to consider hiring an OC who has a head coach interim qualities in case Flus flops at the beginning of 2024? Then you can pivot quickly.
Nick just froze twice. The first one was him just in a peaceful yoga-like stance, yoga-like space, I should say. That was adorable. Now he's back.
Okay.
Sorry. Continue on, Hoge. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what. Thanks for answering the question there, Carm.
Maybe Nick can answer.
Yeah, I don't know. Nick, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so I was, when I was looking at potential, before all these names came out, that was something I was considering. But I mean, you're doing that in the worst case scenario, right? And I don't know if the Bears are necessarily thinking along those lines when they're looking to hire these offense coordinators. Oh, in case Matt Eberflus shits the bag, so to speak, we have this guy who can come up and take over. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a plus, but I don't know if they're really thinking that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Flus is going anywhere.
That too.
That's it clearly isn't the plan.
Yeah, it's like if you're thinking that way already, you should have fired him last week.
Yes, even if it would have been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Hey Nick, you went through a bunch of plays here. How creative would you say they were as far as using different personnel?
Yeah, I mean, you saw everything. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of 11 personnel. That's what everyone in the NFL runs. But one of his most creative plays was when he came out after the Cowboys had a turnover on downs. The first play he comes out with is 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on first down. You're thinking as a defense, they're about to run the ball down their throat. first play, it's a pass to Noah Fant on a nice overroute for a 25-yard gain. So you're seeing the way that Shane Waldron's thinking. Even though he has DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, he just went in 13 personnel and passes to Noah Fant on a 1st and 10 play. So there is some variation, and there are a couple of plays where they had some 2x2 sets and even 3x1 where you had a stacked alignment. So Jackson Smith and Jigba was on the line of scrimmage. Behind him was Tyler Lockett, and then right behind him was one of the tight ends. So you're just presenting different ways that the defense just has to think about things. So just the more and more I watched that game specifically, the more I was thinking about, oh, well, if you have DJ Moore, let's say you had Marvin Harrison Jr., like I could see how you can put those guys on the same side of the field and utilize and maximize their talents.
Yeah, and obviously the Geno Smith part of this I do think is relevant to Justin Fields. I mean, you don't want it to get to the point with Justin Fields where he's got to have a resurgence that late, like it's happened with Geno Smith. But you do like, okay, if you're going down that path, here's a coach that did do this with Geno Smith. And if you're not going down that path with a young rookie quarterback, I think you like what Shane Waldron could potentially do there as well. With one of these rookies. So, hey, really good piece with Nick here on these plays. There's actually, you can click through them and watch these plays. We can't show them here on the YouTube show, so go check them out at allchgo.com, and you'll get more there. Nick, as you look at some of these other candidates besides Shane Waldron, who really stands out to you?
Yeah, so I'm really on the fence about Greg Roman. I don't know if I like the possibility of what he can do, but also you were talking about, Adam, like, if the Bears were to go this route and getting a guy like Greg Roman, he's going to play to the strengths of Justin Fields and utilize his legs. And he had an interview with the 33rd team, and he said you got to tap into your player's strengths. So I think he would do that with Justin Fields. It's just how much has he learned from being away from the game for this past season and taking zoomed out approach of the NFL that he can really show that he's learned how to adapt and be just a better passing game coordinator in a sense, because that's where his faults lie. Because I think you're going to get a good rushing offense, but the Bears, like you were mentioning, Adam, they're good at that. And the reason why ultimately the Ravens and Greg Roman parted ways is that, I'll just quote Jamison Hensley, who covers the Ravens for ESPN. He said, Roman's downfall was the inability to put together a passing game to complement a record-setting run game and his questionable play calling in the red zone. Haven't we ever seen that with Luke Getsy and this Bears offense for the past couple of seasons? So I think you're going to see an efficient Justin Fields, but unless he really takes that next step as a guy that can develop passing plays and really complement the run game, then I don't know what's the ceiling of this Bears offense then? Like, I just don't know if that's the route that you want to go in today's NFL, where you do need to have a lethal passing attack. We saw that from CJ Stroud and Jordan Love and, what the Lions are doing with Ben Johnson. So I just don't know if that would be the route, but I could see why it would be intriguing if you want to keep Justin Fields and, just maximize the athletic ability that not a lot of quarterbacks have. And, Greg Roman has worked with a lot of guys that have that type of attribute, whether it's Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith, even back to his college days at Stanford. Andrew Luck he could do both, but obviously he can, pass from the pocket. So it's interesting. And when I tweeted out yesterday, what are your thoughts on Greg Roman? I swear I got every single response you can imagine. People that hate him, people that love him, and everything in between.
So, all right, let's go big Nicholas Moreano. If the Bears are drafting Caleb Williams, Drake May, whatever, they're moving on. Rookie quarterback. Who do you think of the candidates? Liam Cohn, Greg Olsen, Clint Kubiak, Shane Waldron, Greg Roman. Who do you think is the most friendly instantly to a rookie to come in and pick up the system?
Again, I'll go back to the first guy I mentioned, Shane Waldron, and what you saw from Geno Smith, what I think will translate with Caleb Williams' game right now, is the footwork and the timing of throws. You saw that from Geno Smith on out routes. It was on time, on point, and like even if, let's say, the Shane Waldron were to be here with Justin Fields, like that would be something Fields would need to work on consistently to get to that level where Geno Smith was showing last season. But I think if you have a guy like Caleb Williams, with Waldron, who has that experience of 3 seasons in Seattle being the OC, I think you're going to put him in the best position to succeed because I think the Bears are going to continue to add weapons, put a lot of just targets and weaponry for Caleb Williams to work with. So he'd be my top choice, but Clint Kubiak is a second right now just because of what they were able to do in that 2021 season with Minnesota. Yes, you have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Justin Jefferson, but you got a lot out of Adam Thielen as well. And one of the best games he had watching back, and I'll have an article on this later today, in 2021, they went up against the Green Bay Packers, and it ended up being basically a shootout for the Vikings and Packers in that game. But the Packers were second in the NFL in all these different categories or number 3 in the NFL in points per game given up, pass defense, total defense, yards per play, and least amount of 20-yard plays. The Vikings put up 34 points on that Packers defense. And Cousins balled out, and you had Justin Jefferson contributing, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook had a bunch of yards on the ground. So there was a lot of good things I liked from Clint Kubiak in that really one season that he's had as the OC calling plays. He did have a brief stint actually last year, you guys, in 2022, midway through the season in Denver, where the play calling was relinquished to him.
Oh, Nick.
Like Nick just froze.
That's too bad.
That's what happened.
Nick was on fire.
Yeah, but when you start bringing up the 2022 Denver Broncos and what happened under Nathaniel Hackett, I mean,
things break.
Things like that happen. I mean, you just freeze. You freeze like Nathaniel Hackett did week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks when he was facing Shane Waldron.
We all silly like the mayor.